Hello, I'm Graham and I hope everyone's having a great day, and welcome to today's video. Now in this video I'm going to show you an unexploited feature that's available in the FZ80 or 82 camera. Now if you bought the camera, you may have been disappointed to find out that the maximum shutter speed, even with the mechanical shutter, is just 4 seconds. So for a lot of photographs that you might want to do at twilight hours, or if you want to catch still silky smooth water, 4 seconds may not be enough for your exposures. And today I want to capture this tree with the clouds moving behind it, so we get those wisp cloud trails behind it. But you'd normally need shutter speeds in excess of 20 or 30 seconds to do that. Now there is a mode that you can exploit in the FZ80-82, and it's in the scenery mode, and it's the artistic nightscape. Now that mode allows you to use the camera up to 60 seconds, but to use that in daylight you're obviously going to have to limit the amount of light coming into the camera, and that's where the use of neutral density filters comes in. Now in fact here today I've had to use ND1000 plus an ND2 to ND400 variable filter to get the exposure times that I need. So I'm going to show you how to achieve that using this camera and be able to use that for your long exposures. So let me set up and try and film the back of the camera as we do this procedure. Well, I've got the FZ80-82 mounted on a tripod, and it is essential to mount it on a tripod for these extended shutter speeds. It's rather bright on the LCD screen at the back because of the direction that I need to shoot the picture, so I'm going to try and shield that with a bit of plastic to hopefully give you some indication on the LCD screen of what I'm doing. Well, to begin with, I'm here in the aperture priority mode, and to give you an idea of the exposures, f4, it's 1/1300th of a second at ISO 80. I've got it in manual focus so I can focus on that tree. As focusing with the neutral density becomes quite difficult, as you can't actually see the image too good. So let's first of all take that picture just to show you what a static picture looks like, and I'll set the 2-second timer up ready. So here we go, here's the first picture at that 1/1300th of a second at f4. Now I'm going to switch to the mode which enables you to use this extended mode, and it's in the scene mode. So turn into top control dial until you get to scene, and it's number 15, artistic nightscape. So here by default it sets up a shutter speed of a 30th of a second at f8 with ISO 80. So obviously that's going to be too bright for the scene, so this is why you need to use your neutral density filter. Now here I've got a pack of neutral density, which is the ND1000, which is a 10-stop filter, and a new filter that I've just picked up from Zomai, which is the variable ND, ND2 to ND400, which is a 1-stop to allegedly 8 stops of neutral density. So combination I should be able to get up to 18 stops of reduction, but I'm not going to be using anywhere near as much as that. So I'm going to just screw on the filter pack, being careful trying not to disturb the focus of the camera. So I've got the zoom set to 1 digit below the maximum aperture, and again if I try and shield the screen, on the screen you can see that that is now given an exposure of 30 seconds at f5.6. so we've reduced the light coming into the camera to bring it into the range of which this particular app would be running, and that is the nightscape mode. But it looks a little bit dark, so what I'm trying to do is to change the shutter speed. So I'm going to go down from 30 down to say 20 seconds. Now the trick to use an aperture control is actually to use exposure compensation. So while the LCD is displaying the actual time and the aperture, if you press the top control dial to give you control of the exposure compensation, you now notice as I increase the exposure, it's changing the aperture value for me. So if I go down to f3.2, which is somewhere near the sweet spot for this lens, and I now take this picture, you notice it's still dark on the LCD display, but I'll let this run for 30 seconds. And again using that 2-second timer so that we're not going to disturb the image as the camera takes. So I'll fast forward through the video because we're going to get the 30 seconds exposure plus the 30 seconds dark slide, and we can have a look at this image on the back of the LCD to see what it looks like. If it's too bright, then obviously we can reduce the exposure time, or if it's too dark we can either change the aperture to a wider value, or we can increase the shutter time. So let's just wait for the end of the exposure. And we can look on the back of the screen, put it into replay mode, and that doesn't actually look too bad. It looks as though I've got a little bit of vignetting from stacking the two filter sets together, but we could easily crop that out. So I'm going to just increase the exposure time slightly. Oh, first of all, I'm going to crop in a little bit to get rid of that vignette there, and I'm going to increase the shutter speed from 30 seconds to 40 seconds, so the image should be a little bit brighter. So again, we'll take that shot with this time with a 40-second exposure. And again, even with the camera mounted on a sturdy tripod, in a wind like there is today, there's possibility of the camera shaking, and that will just destroy the very fine detail. So in these sort of conditions, if you're trying to film these sort of cloud streaks, then you really need a good strong tripod to enable you to get really pin sharp pictures. Now by default the camera changes to the scenery mode, but it is adjustable, so you can actually change the contrast, sharpening, noise reduction and saturation if you wanted to change the characteristics of the film type. It uses auto white balance and there's no way to change that, but you still get control of the parameters within that white balance procedure, so you can actually change the way that the white balance records the scene. You can make it warmer or colder, or change it to whichever colour of the spectrum that you want. So we're counting down now. We should be able to have a look at this, and this scene should be a little bit brighter. Alright, let's go into the replay mode. There we are. So the scene does look to be a little bit brighter. Now, if I go into the setup menu and we go up to the record setup on page 1, so the photo style is locked into the scenery mode, but there's no reason why you can't change the parameters of that to give you either higher contrast, less sharpening if you wanted to reduce some of the artifacts that come out in JPEG, but if you shoot in RAW then this doesn't particularly matter because you're going to do that in your own processing. And if you wanted to increase the saturation, you can do in that photo style. I'm going to go into manual focus and see if we can just actually see where the focus point is. So again, we'll use the magnification and we'll just change it over to that tree and see if we can actually pick up the outline of the tree. So it is quite difficult to see on the screen, but that looks to be in fairly sharp focus. Let me just recompose to get more of the top of that tree in the frames, so we're getting more of the sky and more of those clouds going by. So let's just take that shot and we'll start the 2-second timer again, and again we've got our 40-second exposure plus the 40-second dark slide, which removes the hot pixels and other noisy pixels from the main image. So on screen now you can see the new image that we shot using the modified scenery parameters, where we changed the sharpness and noise reduction and added a little bit more saturation. But I'm going to process these using Luminar to bring up the raw file to make the process changes. I mentioned the white balance adjustment. If you click white balance, you can see that you don't get the opportunity to use one of your presets, but if you wanted to make this scene warmer, then you could move your cursor towards the red yellow, which warms up the scene. So if I take it almost the edge there of the yellow red and just bring it down to the red slightly, that will give us a warmer picture. So again, we'll take this one again with that 40 seconds exposure to try and capture some more of those clouds moving by. In fact, I'm going to try and get a 60-second exposure. So I'm going to try and reduce the aperture by reducing the exposure value compensation so that I get f4.5, and now going back into the shooting menu, I'm going to change the shutter speed to give me 60 seconds. So here the clouds will be moving a little bit more in the image, and we'll see what this gives us. So that's the one with the white balance shifted over towards the amber and the red, giving you a slightly warmer picture, more like you would get in a cloudy situation rather than bright sunshine. So there we are, that's how to use the artistic night scene mode to enable you to use long exposures even in daylight hours. Hope you found that useful. If you're a new viewer, please do click the subscribe button, and also have a look at my photographic blog, and I'll put a link to that in the video description below. You'll find lots more information on this FZ80-82 camera and on bridge cameras in general. So until my next video, thanks again for watching. As usual, please do take care, and I hope to see you all in my next one. Goodbye for now.